very concept of God is that God is eternal, absolute, ultimate, and non-dependent, and the precondition of all derivational facts. And so
if somebody says, if someone were to just agree, okay, I don't believe there's a God, but I guess I'll just take it that entails that I'm saying there is no God. So I guess your next question is then how do you defend that position?
No, when I asked him, I was showing him the incoherency of his system. His position, whether he realizes it or not, entails the falsity that the absolute is personal. And so then I asked him, what is that which is ultimate and is non-personal? And his answer is, I don't know. Then I said, if you don't know what it is, how is it that the absolute being personal is false? And he goes, I'm not saying that. But you see, I've already explained to him, not only today, but on many other occasions, why what he said is false. If you don't accept the God worldview, then you are speaking from and operating from the not God worldview, that the not God worldview is actual. Right? And if you
right.
presuppose the not God worldview, right? So if he doesn't know what the absolute is, then how did he rule out that the absolute is personal? You see,
I'm not sure.
Well, the answer is because that person is motivated by one thing. And it is the same thing that the Jewish Supreme Court said to Pontius Pilate. We have no king but Caesar. Or to put it in other vernacular, we will not have this man rule over us. Okay? They do not want to be in submission and to acknowledge that they are a creature of God. That is their sole motivation. We will not have this man rule over us. And so they will say anything that has a facade or a veneer of intellectuality in order to evade this, even to the point of either being passive-aggressive and disruptive or to overtly blow up the conversation with a verbal stick of dynamite. This is what they do. Now, the point I'm trying to show him, his position is hopelessly incoherent. So he said that his criterion, in order to believe that the absolute, in the absolute, and that it possesses personhood, is that it requires rational justification. But he does not accept that. Since he doesn't accept it, he presupposes its falsity. So then the question remains is, what is your rational justification for that which is impersonal, the impersonal absolute? And he said that he doesn't have one. So in other words, he's holding to a concept of the absolute, that it is impersonal, without a rational justification. So he's contradicting himself. I would believe in God as the personal absolute, but God has not been rationally justified. But I'm speaking from a not God world, an impersonal absolute, and it is whatever is absolute, whatever its makeup of, it is not personal, but I don't have a rational justification for that. That's his position. He's contradicting his own epistemology. That's why his position is incoherent.
Hey, Darth, what if he says he doesn't know?
And that's precisely what he did say. You see, he said, I don't know what the absolute is. I said, if you don't know what the absolute is, how is it that you hold that the absolute is personal is false? And then he tried to lie his way out of it by saying, well, that's not my position. Oh, yes, it is. Because If you don't accept the God worldview, you are presupposing its falsity. Whether you realize it or not, whether one wants to admit it or not, you presuppose that every other worldview other than the one that you are speaking from is false. And if somebody says, no, I do not presuppose XYZ worldview, that is not my own, then that is a logical contradiction and an incoherency. Because XYZ worldview and not XYZ worldview cannot coexist. A worldview is all-encompassing. And so what they want to do is, by hook or by crook, by verbal prestidigitation, they want to do hand-waving. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They just want to bamboozle us with verbosity and monologuing. Because they've now been cornered with the absolute incoherency of their position by the biblical transcendental line of reasoning. And there's no escaping. None. It cannot be escaped. And so what they will do is they will attempt to escape by verbal prestidigitation. And a good example, although Craig was not offering the biblical transcendental line of reasoning in his debate with Christopher Hitchens, what we see is when he was confronted with the question is, do you have an argument for atheism? Right? Christopher Hitchens tried desperately, which resulted in humiliation, of using his verbal rhetorical skills as a raconteur to get out of it. And he made a fool out of himself. And you can see it for yourself, the debate between William Lane Craig and Christopher Hitchens. Fast forward to the Q&A session. And what Christopher Hitchens does is what every atheist that I encounter does. They simply try to bamboozle me in the audience that they're answering. They're not. Because the very non-acceptance, if you just simply say, I don't accept your claim, that statement alone is filled with unstipulated premises. And when we look at those premises, they are incoherent. To simply say, I don't have a good reason to believe in God, is an incoherent statement. Why is that? It's because when you claim I don't have a good reason, you are claiming by implication that you possess the capacity to reason, and that you reason that you don't have a good reason for God. Well, if you possess the capacity to reason, then the ultimate grounds as the prerequisite for reason exist. Right? But when we ask, what is the ultimate basis of all dependent states or intelligible facts, okay, including your capacity to reason, what is it? They either cannot answer the question, or they will make an assertion such as matter, the eternality of matter and energy at a subquantum level. You say, good. How is that rationally justified? And it turns out that they are adopting an ultimate precondition in violation of their own criterion of belief that they use to dismiss God as the personal absolute. So even the statement, I don't have a good reason to believe in God, upon analysis, is incoherent and a self-contradiction. Everybody, when we speak, if we so much as say the sky is blue, we will consciously or unconsciously, explicitly or implicitly, be holding to some ultimacy of reality. Because if you claim not to, then you do not have intelligibility for dependencies. No ultimacy, then you have no dependencies. And they're not going to be able to get away with saying, well, I'm not saying that there's no ultimacy. I'm just saying I don't know what it is that these dependencies derive from. But you see, the point is simply this. If somebody says, well, the sky is blue because of God, somebody else says the sky is blue because of not God, one of the subjects in the proposition does not exist. It does not have intelligibility, because the intelligibility of the sky is blue in each proposition will only be intelligible with respect that the system is actual. So the statement the sky is blue in one of the propositions is false, because it doesn't exist, deriving from the predicate that does not exist. Do you understand?
Seems like they're praying for something else other than God, but they're hoping something else comes along.
No, what the Bible told us 2,000 years ago, what they're doing, it says, that which can be known about God is evident to them. Ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, God's eternal powers have been clearly seen through what has been made, so that men are without excuse. And they turned and are you ready for this? They worshiped the creation. In other words, that which is made up of matter and energy is God, but without the personhood. Do you know that Neil deGrasse Tyson pretty much said that? He was asked by Joe Rogan, what is it that you think is at the most bottom level of existence? You know what Neil deGrasse Tyson said? He said forces. To put it more accurately, what he meant was probably quantum fields. That is saying that these quantum fields are eternal. They are our God. You see, the arrangement of these quantum fields result in particles, and particles result in matter.